So have you ever messed up so badly that you just wanted the ground to swallow you whole? Or maybe your first instinct was to find someone else to blame. We're going to get into all of that today, the psychology of what happens when trust gets broken. We're talking shame, hiding, and blame, and what all that really means for our relationships.
Okay, let's just start with a feeling I think we all know. That gut punch moment when you realize you've done something wrong. You said the wrong thing, you broke a promise, whatever it is. It literally feels like the floor has just dropped out from under you. You feel hurt, you're terrified, and you have absolutely no idea how you're going to face anyone.
You know, psychologists have a name for this. They call it a relational transgression. And it's not just some small mistake. It's a real rupture. It shatters our sense of safety and predictability. The world that made sense a minute ago is just gone. And we're left totally lost in this internal war of emotions.
So right there, in that moment of total chaos inside your head, your emotions come to this really critical fork in the road. And the path you take, which, by the way, you probably don't even realize you're choosing, it determines everything. It decides whether you move towards fixing things or if you just retreat and hide.
Now, we use the words guilt and shame pretty much interchangeably in everyday life, right? But from a psychological standpoint, they are worlds apart. Seriously. And getting this difference is the key to understanding why we react the way we do when we've messed up.
So here it is, the two paths laid out. Guilt is all about your actions. It's a social thing. It basically says, hey, I did something that hurt someone, and that feeling pushes you to go fix the damage. Shame, though, that's totally different. It's about yourself. It's that awful feeling that you are fundamentally flawed, and it makes you want to just withdraw and hide from everyone.
And this right here, this is the most important part. If you remember one thing, make it this. Guilt is about something you did, an action you can apologize for, or a mistake you can try to correct. But shame is about who you think you are. It's a feeling that you, as a person, are just bad. One feels fixable, the other can feel like a life sentence.
There was this amazing study with toddlers that just shows this perfectly. Researchers gave them a doll that was, secretly rigged to break. Now, the toddlers who felt guilt, they immediately went and showed the broken doll to the adult. They were trying to make it right. But the toddlers who felt shame, they avoided eye contact, they turned their bodies away, they hid. You can literally see our adult patterns starting right there in childhood.
So you see, guilt actually has a job to do. It's got a clear, constructive purpose. It follows this really simple path. We realize we're responsible for some kind of harm, we feel that uncomfortable pang of guilt, and that feeling motivates us to take action to make things right. It's basically our built-in emotional system for fixing our screw-ups and keeping our social bonds intact.
Okay, so that's the whole internal story. That's what's happening when we look inward. But what happens when, instead of looking in the mirror, we turn our focus completely outward? What about when we start pointing fingers?
Yep, this is the blame game. Psychologists have a term for how we assign responsibility. They call it attribution. And the way we do it, especially with the people closest to us, reveals a ton about the health of that relationship.
The research on couples is just fascinating. It shows this pattern that's so consistent, it's almost like a checkup for the relationship's health. So happy, healthy couples, they tend to give their partner the benefit of the doubt. If their partner does something good, they think, yep, that's just who they are, a great person. If they do something bad, they blame the situation. Oh, they must have had a really stressful day. But distressed couples, they do the complete opposite. And negative action is seen as proof of a bad character. And anything positive is just brushed off as a fluke.
All right, let's circle back to that feeling of shame we were talking about. Because that feeling, that deep sense of being fundamentally flawed, it often kicks off this powerful, almost primitive urge to just hide, to make ourselves completely invisible to the world.
And this urge to hide, it often shows up as what psychology, going all the way back to Freud, calls defense mechanisms. You can think of them as these unconscious little tools our brain uses to shield our ego from painful truths. And how do they do that? By distorting reality.
And we all do this stuff sometimes, right? We conveniently forget a bad memory. That's repression. We refuse to accept a difficult truth. That's denial. Or we find a million logical reasons for a bad decision. That's rationalization. They help us cope in the short term for sure. But the big catch is that every single one of them works by bending our perception of what's real.
So beyond those unconscious defenses, there's a much more active form of hiding called deactivating strategies. This is when someone intentionally pushes down their need for connection.
They'll actively avoid getting too close, insist they don't need anyone, and basically create a huge emotional distance, all as a way to protect themselves from ever getting hurt.
So, we've looked at the internal world of guilt and shame and the external reactions of blame and hiding. It's kind of messy. So the big question is, how do we get from that moment of total rupture back to connection? How do we actually repair things?
Well, here's the good news. A major screw-up does not have to be the end of a relationship. Not at all. Researchers use this term accommodation to describe the choices we make when a partner acts in a destructive way. And believe me, those choices make all the difference in the world.
According to some really important research, our responses tend to fall into 4 main buckets. The constructive, helpful paths are voice, where you actively talk about the problem, and loyalty, where you patiently wait for things to improve. Then you've got the destructive paths. Exit, which is, threatening to leave or actually leaving, and neglect, where you just passively let the relationship fall apart.
And really, here's the most important takeaway from all of this. When we choose to respond constructively, with voice and with loyalty, we treat the problem like a temporary hurdle to get over. It stops one mistake from kicking off a whole downward spiral of destruction. Just understanding these patterns in ourselves is a huge first step toward building stronger, more resilient relationships. So that leaves us with one last thing to think about. The next time you make a mistake and you get that awful exposed feeling, what's your go-to reaction? Is your first instinct to start building a bridge back to the other person, or do you start building a wall to protect yourself? Your answer might just tell you which path you're on and whether it's leading you toward repair or pulling you further away.